Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Lots of things happening here in this town this week. We've got a little Meet the Candidate segment for you. All of the individuals who are vying to be the next Speaker of the House. Not that I know why you would want that job in particular, but some people do. So we'll tell you about that. We also have an interesting situation where a number of Republicans are very mad at Democrats for failing to bail out Kevin McCarthy. And there was also some retribution enacted on Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer. They're kicked out of their little special offices in the Capitol.
Can't say I'm not.
So all of the fallout here, we'll get into that. We've also got a really bad jobs report that just came out. There's another one that's coming out on Friday. We'll see if that confirms the bad news. So we'll get into that as well. New numbers with regard to how much Americans would like to see a party other than the Democrats and Republicans succeed. And it's actually surprising who is most interested in moving in third-party direction, which could have some implications for the RFK Jr. Impending independent run. So we'll get into that. And Michael Lewis once again under fire, this time for what appears to be a very sympathetic portrait of Sam Bankman-Fried as he faces trial this week. We're also going to be joined by a United Auto worker who is on strike currently to give us an update from the ground about what is going on and what they are hoping to achieve through their strike. So a lot to get into.
That's right. And I just want to say once again, thank you to all the premium subscribers. We've got the upcoming focus group in Atlanta. You guys will be interested in that, specifically about what we're going to be talking about with third parties. So we're going to talk to Democratic voter this time about how they feel about Biden. And also, thank you to all the premium subs helping us support Jordan Sheridan and other on-the-ground reporting efforts as we bring more of an effort in all of these cases. You know, we're having a UAW worker on. It's better to not hear from us. It's better to hear from them. And so that is what you are helping support. BreakingPoints.com if you are able. So let's get to the speaker's race. Just some shocking turn of I feel like, Krystal, I have lived several lifetimes in the last couple of weeks. Just from Dianne Feinstein's death onwards, it just feels like things keep on rolling. And now we've lost the speaker. Counterpoints did a great job yesterday summarizing Kevin McCarthy and how he's decided to go right off into the sunset. I actually support that. I support people losing a vote and then having the dignity to be like, you know what, I'm out. Now, though, absolute chaos. The calls are everywhere here in Washington. We now have 2 official bids for speaker, both of which are actually quite formidable. I could see both succeeding. Let's start with Congressman Steve Scalise. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. He announced yesterday in a letter to his colleagues, quote, "It is with that sense of responsibility and purpose I am seeking the conference's nomination for Speaker of the House. You know my leadership style. I have displayed this as your majority leader and whip. I have a proven track record of bringing together diverse array of viewpoints within our conference to build consensus where others thought it impossible." The other one is also a very different style of speaker bid. Congressman Jim Jordan, let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. He announces, quote, "We agreed at the beginning of the Congress there are 3 fundamental things the House must do. Pass the bills that need to be passed, do the oversight, and rein in the spending. Working with Chairman Green and our leadership, I helped to deliver the most significant legislative accomplishment this Congress, the strongest immigration and border enforcement bill ever, with other committee chairs and members of the Judiciary Committee. I am doing the oversight and holding this administration accountable. I have been amongst the leaders pushing for fiscal discipline with my career." And then at the end, he says, "We must do it together as a conference. I respectfully ask for your support as Speaker of the House of Representatives." Both of these are critical actual bids and really have 2 diverging viewpoints. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the dark horse candidate who has been now nominated by Marjorie Taylor Greene and by Congressman Troy Nehls, President Donald Trump, former president of the United States. As you remember, you do not have to be an actual sitting member of Congress to be the speaker, even though it has never happened. The rules don't say that. Trump himself actually weighed in on that bid. Here's what he had to say.
A lot of people have been calling me about Speaker. All I can say is we'll do whatever's best for the country and for the Republican Party.
Would you take the job?
Great people. Would you take the say we have some great people.
Would you take the job?
A lot of people have asked me about it. I'm focused. You know, we're leading. I don't know you. I'm sure you don't read too much in the papers, but we're leading by like 50 points for president. You know, my focus is totally on that. If I can help them during the process, I would do it. But we have some great people in the Republican Party that could do a great job as Speaker.
Trump also posted this on Truth Social yesterday. Let's put this up there on the screen. What do we see? Oh, it's Trump in the photoshopped into the speaker's galley, wearing with the gavel, wearing his "Make America Great Again" hat. Krystal, I was telling you before the show, I should note that would actually be against the dress code rules, of which I support, by the way. I do not believe that hat should be worn on the floor, and especially not by the Speaker of the House. But there we have it. I mean, I think one of the ways that we can summarize it and look at it for everyone is this: Steve Scalise is probably the more establishment type of Republican. This is the former leader. He has been now in the position for almost a decade, 2014. He was the whip. He has good relationships with others. He has a very different style, actually, than Kevin McCarthy. And behind the scenes, there were tensions between the two. But he would by all estimations would be the quote unquote establishment choice. The thing is, and I mean, look, I'm shocked that Scalise is running. I didn't even think he would be a viable candidate just because, as we raised, I mean, this is a man who's been put through the ringer. He survived that horrible mass shooting in 2017 against congressmen.
Yeah.
Then, he currently has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of blood cancer and is currently undergoing chemotherapy
I
treatment.
believe he was just diagnosed. Like, we just learned about it last month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows how long it's been going on, but at the very least, like, he has to wear like a KN95 mask because like infection is that much of a threat. Not to mention, when you were speaker, it's not just the job here. You got to fly your ass all over this country raising money for people.
Money, that's
so
a big
that's
part of the job.
one thing. Jim Jordan also, actually, if you'll recall, I always said I thought he was a dark horse candidate just because this is a man with incredible amount of he has an incredible amount of credibility with the Freedom Caucus. He has made multiple stands against Speaker Boehner and against Speaker Ryan, but he voted for Kevin McCarthy this time around. Critically, Matt Gaetz and that wing, all of them have said, oh yeah, I would like Speaker Jordan, I would like Speaker Scalise. So we'll see where they line up. People like Thomas Massey, who also voted for Kevin McCarthy, but still, more of a hardliner Republican. He came out and he supported Jordan. So I'm curious what you think. These are probably our top two candidates. The speaker could be one of those two. But, we should also remember that chaos, who the hell knows?
Yeah, that's
both
right.
of these guys could fall, and 3 weeks from now, we could have a totally different speaker whose name I didn't even just mention.
I mean, you could end up very easily with a situation where, since you have these two individuals in the race and they're splitting the votes and you can't come to that majority consensus, that some other dark horse emerges as sort of like a consensus pick who's able to get across the finish line. There's just no way of saying, in terms of their ideological differences, I'm not sure it matters that much, because as we saw with McCarthy and as we've seen with previous Republican speakers, it's less about what they really want to do and more about what their caucus is going to permit them to do.
That's a good point.
And so, even we're going to talk about Ukraine aid. I think part of why McCarthy basically had to step down, there were no real moves left for him on the chessboard.
Yes.
Because if he made some deal with Democrats to stay in office, and I think if he had offered them much of anything, certainly if he had offered them like, okay, I'll bring up the Ukraine aid, they would have backed him. They would have kept him in office. Then he's screwed with regard to fundraising. He's screwed with regard to the his never-ending nightmare with the caucus and with the Matt Gaetz wing of the caucus would just be beginning. So that was like not a good and viable option. And then on the other side, it didn't look like there was really anything he could do to placate this group of holdouts, because he'd already given the store away to what much left was there for him to give them. So it was a completely untenable situation. And whoever is able to succeed and end up as the next speaker, which could take some time to resolve, by the way, is going to be subject to the exact same identical set of pressures. So again, I mean, I guess my biggest analysis is I'm perplexed why anyone would want this job. There's a lot of self-delusion here in Washington that like, oh, well, I'm the guy and I'll be different and they'll respect me and I'll be able to pull. Probably the only one who actually would be able to pull it off and pull them together is Donald Trump.
Yep.
But I don't think anyone's really, even he doesn't seem like he's really taking any of that particularly seriously.
I told you this privately. I think Trump would be the best speaker. You know why? You can't cross him. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to vote against Trump? And
Look,
then Trump is going to primary you?
He's the alpha.
Exactly.
You can't go against him.
You can't speak out against this man. I mean, he could negotiate with confidence. He could basically do whatever he wanted. You want evidence for that? Look at whenever he was president. All the people who, even the people who voted against him, they did it very quietly and they never made it into a thing. They certainly never would have pulled any of the shenanigans that they did against Kevin McCarthy. And that's the other one. If you want to keep Matt Gaetz in line, who does Matt Gaetz answer to? Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and everybody else who is in the party. You would just have to hold your nose and you would have to make do. So I actually think Trump would be a very strong candidate. Now, I do not believe he actually would be the person who, I don't believe he ultimately will end up in that position because there's a whole, logistically and all kinds of things. But, you know, it's out there. Let's also, though, talk about the race for number 2, Steve Scalise, if he were to get the job, what that would look like. Let's put this up there on the screen. There's actually a lot of jockeying going on behind the scenes right now. So in terms of who would be the Republican majority leader, remember the leader is actually the number 2 position because the number 1 is the speaker whenever you have the majority. Steve Scalise vying for the speaker, which means that Tom Emmer, who is currently the number 3, the majority whip, is currently leading for majority leader and also has been racking up a decent amount of endorsements. However, Elise Stefanik appears to be making a big move for the number 2 slot in the party. Remember, she got a lot of credibility during the impeachment fight, especially the second impeachment, where she stood up and I believe spoke on behalf of Trump. Trump has always admired her. He spoke on behalf of her. He said, this is a potential vice president here. I mean, she has a lot of credibility, I think, with Trump at the very least, which of course would matter. Representative Jim Banks, who's one of those MAGA-ish type Republicans, came out and endorsed her just yesterday. So that also would be a very big fight. But all of this depends on Scalise not getting the speakership. We don't know what the whip count is right now. So in terms of the vote is supposed to be next Wednesday. Tuesday, the House will come back in session. Everybody will fly. They'll have a caucus meeting on Tuesday where they cast the initial round of ballots. Wednesday is supposed to be the actual vote on the floor of the House of Representatives. Nobody expects, at least as of right now, that there will be a prevailing vote for speaker on that ballot.
Yeah.
Although, I think one scenario where that might be possible is that the Republicans say, we're not leaving this room on Tuesday night till we figure this out. And then we go and we vote 218 on the day of the election on Wednesday. They could just say, we're going to figure this out in here. Whoever ends up winning, and we can all agree for the entire caucus, not a single person can vote no, or if they do, you know, maybe they'll just not show up that day, some sort of absence thing in order to rig the vote, just if they can't stomach it. I could see that playing out just because they're like, we're sick of the headlines and we're sick of the chaos. Wednesday, we're coming together and we're going to vote for a speaker. But as of today, not a single informed person, including the congressmen themselves, believe that anything like that is going to happen.
Yeah. And remember, nothing can be done in the House until this is taken care of.
Yeah.
And they just passed that 45-day continuing resolution. So you have that clock ticking in terms of when that expires, you're facing another government shutdown situation. So, you know, it's not like there aren't things that they need to do, but you cannot move forward on anything until you have a Speaker of the House. You know, I don't think that this situation really gets resolved until the next election. Because, and I'm not saying there won't be there will be some Speaker of the House. They'll figure something out. Someone will end up in the position. But in terms of the level of chaos and the dissidents and the way that this is all going down, I really don't think that there is any resolution until either Republicans have a good showing and they increase their margin, because all of this political leverage in, you know, the hands of the Matt Gaetz wing of the party comes from the fact that they have a 3-vote majority. That's where that comes from. And you now have some members of the Republican caucus, Mike Lawler in particular, very vocal that they want to have a vote to expel Matt Gaetz. That would then further decrease your margin. You also have George Santos, who's under multiple federal indictment. So the margin is as narrow as it could possibly be. So you either have a result where they expand their margin and whoever is the next Speaker of the House has a little bit more wiggle room to work with, or they lose their majority, which is very possible. And, you know, you end up with a Democratic House and you end up going in that direction. So I think we're going to continue to see this type of brinksmanship and, you know, unsettled nature of the Republican caucus, just given the nature of their narrow margin, given the fact that you have a handful of people who are willing to do, you know, willing to cause chaos, willing to, you know, go against whoever their leaders are, unafraid of any of that. So you're going to continue to have that dynamic until you end up with a different situation, a different either caucus leading the House or a larger margin for the Republicans. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.